Do you experience panic attacks? What are they? How can we manage them and eventually resolve them? If you're interested, keep watching. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is David Lisson. So at the time of making this video, I've been a licensed mental health counselor in the state of New York for about 6 years. I've been a life coach for 10 years. And prior to that, I was a Chan Buddhist monk, providing mentorship to people who were struggling with various psychological issues. Over the years, I've encountered many cases where people were struggling with panic attacks. I myself went through a period of life where I felt suffocated by anxiety and also suffered from panic attacks. Today, I'd like to share about how to understand panic attacks and how to use mindfulness to manage and resolve them. Although every person's experience will differ, in general, a panic attack is a very brief but intense experience of fear accompanied by various mental and physical reactions. Some physical reactions are tension, hurried breathing or difficulty breathing, rapid heartbeat, sweating, blushing, even itchiness or shaking. Mental reactions include racing thoughts, irrational thinking, panic or a feeling of loss of control, as well as a sudden fear of imminent harm or death. Basically, a panic attack is an overwhelming emotional response to a perceived threat. It's just like how we'd respond to an actual life and death situation where we're faced with a real threat. So think of how you'd react if you were walking in the woods and you suddenly encountered this giant 12-foot brown bear that stood up on its hind legs and let out a ferocious roar. Or maybe you've actually been attacked or mugged on the city streets and someone pulled out a knife or a gun. What's the first thought that came to mind? Am I gonna die? The fear of death and the instinct of survival is one of the strongest mechanisms in the psyche of a living being. We're evolutionarily hardwired to avoid danger and seek safety. This preserves the continuation of our species. Most of the time in our lives, when we're relatively safe, we don't need this survival mechanism to kick into full gear. But in cases where we do need it, this so-called fight or flight response is very useful because it can give us a boost of energy, adrenaline, and impetus to protect ourselves. This can concentrate our mind on only one thought: survival. So in those cases, our mind needs to quickly come up with a solution to the impending threat. We need to rapidly think of a way out, and our body needs to move quickly to either fight or run, and so our muscles engage and they prepare for action. All of this leads to heavy breathing and rapid heartbeat to support the energy that's needed for action. But underlying this response often is the fear of death or harm. Due to such a strong sense of fear, you may experience difficulty breathing, and you may feel like you're going to die, but you're not. This is just an overstimulated survival response. So the phenomena that we experience during a panic attack have their function, but sometimes this response is triggered due to a false alarm. That false alarm comes from our false perception or inaccurate perception. A false perception, in some schools of thought called cognitive distortion, is where we inaccurately perceive something. For example, it's like if we were walking along in the woods and we mistaked a rope for a snake. Or if we're in the city at night and walking alone, and what we hear and what we think is a person sneaking up on us is actually just the sound of a rat rummaging in the trash. In those moments, our mind receives some information from the environment, either a sight or a sound or even a sense of touch. Our mind attempts to cognize these objects, and it makes use of the collection of images and impressions in our memory, but it's made a false association. Another form of misperception is a threat of harm to our self-image. When we feel that we've said or done something stupid and we think that our reputation is going to be damaged. Another example is that if you think your child has done something embarrassing in public and you're afraid that people will think you're a bad parent. In these cases, we think that our reputation could be harmed. A panic attack can occur suddenly at any moment that we strongly feel that we could suffer harm to our body or to our reputation. At that moment, we feel out of control and afraid of the impending harm. This process is based on our instinctual drive to survive and distorted by our false perceptions. Panic attacks are normal and they happen in degrees. They can happen more in some people than others and often occur more with people who are acutely self-conscious. When a person is acutely self-conscious, they're strongly attached to their ideas about themselves and often have reactive or self-critical, judgmental thoughts. Some people see panic attacks as a personality flaw, as a weakness. So they think to themselves, I shouldn't be experiencing this. I'm so weak. This experience of panic can develop into a pattern and become problematic. Some people may experience panic attacks multiple times in a day. Some maybe just a few times in a week. Others, a couple times a month. It depends. Panic attacks can develop to the point where a person is afraid of the panic attack itself, and they try to avoid situations that could trigger an attack. For example, we may try to avoid social situations if that's what triggers our panic attacks. These are some common experiences of panic attacks, and just by understanding this much can be helpful. When we know why panic attacks happen, and we understand that they're normal, we may experience some relief right away. But merely understanding is not enough. We need a method to help us be able to manage the panic attack in the moment, as well as a method to help us gradually relieve and resolve panic attacks at the root of the problem. One method is mindfulness. In the moment of a panic attack, as I mentioned, the fight or flight response is triggered and a series of reactions arises. With mindfulness, we can short-circuit this response by being fully aware of it in the moment. If we can be aware of panic, then immediately the panic response is weakened. How do we do that? First, we could take a few deep breaths and regulate our breathing. When we do that, we bring our attention to our breathing, which helps us ground our mind in the present moment and helps us release our fixation to the thing that we fear. It brings our breathing into more of a calm state and helps to release some tension. So after 2 or 3 deep breaths, then allow your breathing to be natural, even if it's still a bit heavy or tight. Second, we can relax our muscles. Simply notice the muscle tension and release it. So let go of holding the body tightly and allow your body to be at ease, even while all those other reactions are happening, like rapid heartbeat irregular breathing, sweating, etc. Just relax into it. The heartbeat will likely continue to pound for a little while. The breathing will still be coarse for a while, but don't resist any of this. Resistance will only make it worse. Just relax. When we relax, we release that energy that's fueling the panic. Because as I mentioned, tension is this signal to our body and mind that something needs to be done. We need to fight or we need to run. When we relax, it's this signal that nothing is wrong, everything is fine. There's no need to jump into action. So physically relaxing allows the mind to be more at ease. When the body is relaxed, racing thoughts then settle. And once you're aware that you can choose to relax, even if it's a real threat, the fear response is already weakened. Third, after we're more relaxed, then we naturally have this awareness of the perceptions in our mind. We can more clearly see the thoughts in our mind, and we can see that what we fear is actually just a thought or a series of thoughts. Then we can have a calm detachment from them. This allows us to disengage from these thoughts and not continue this irrational pattern of fearful thinking. Thoughts come, thoughts go, we see them as thoughts, and they eventually lose their momentum and fade. So in principle, when our body can be pacified, then our mind or our thinking can be pacified. And then all the other symptoms will gradually be pacified. So, when we experience a panic attack, if we can be mindfully aware of it in the present moment, then we can manage it. After the panic has passed, however, the roots of fear are still there. What are they? As mentioned before, our deep-rooted self-consciousness is still there. Our attachment to our body and our fear of death is still there. And our attachment to our self-image is still very strong. So we fear harm to our body and our reputation. And it's interesting to note that people who often suffer from panic attacks may have a habit of perfectionism or a very high standard that they place on themselves. They don't want to mess up and they don't want to do anything wrong. They may have a hypersensitivity to their performance and they don't want to be seen as making a mistake. So how do we deal with these deep roots of fear? Well, I'll address that in a future video. But in principle, with mindfulness, when we're in a calm state, such as when we're practicing sitting meditation, or when we're relatively calm and just encountering challenges in our daily life, we can be more aware of our attachment to ourself, to our body, or to our image. So we can practice gradually letting go of our self-consciousness. So in conclusion, if you're facing a panic attack, you can follow these steps. 1. Take a few deep breaths. 2. Relax your muscles. And 3. Be clearly aware of the thoughts in your mind. Allow the reactions of the panic attack to continue without resistance, without self-criticism, and without trying to escape. By just being aware of the panic attack in a relaxed state, you diffuse the whole power of the panic and you can find calm. So in this way, we can retrain ourselves to respond to any perceived threat, false or real, in a stable way, with much less fear. So I hope you found this video insightful and helpful. If so, please like and share, and feel free to share some of your own experiences in the comments. And in the meantime, be well and be wise.